Welcome to Gospel Truth with Andrew Wommack, a teaching ministry that focuses on God's unconditional love and grace. And now, here's Andrew.
Welcome to our Monday's broadcast of the Gospel Truth. This last week, I was contrasting self-esteem, which is really promoted by psychology today in our society, with Christ-esteem. And I could literally just keep talking about this over and over and making the same points. I've used some scriptures where Jesus said things you have to deny yourself. And this isn't a message that He only gave one time. This is a message that was repeated multiple times in the same book. So it's not just like one gospel writer recorded it and then I flip over here and read another gospel writer. No, Jesus used this exact same message multiple times. It was a common theme of His that He told people they needed to deny themselves. Look at this in Luke chapter 9 and in verse 23. He said unto them all, If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. This talks about denying yourself, not promoting yourself, not esteeming yourself above other people. I've already used those verses in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, where you're supposed to esteem others better than yourself. This just goes against what our society is teaching. And I know that some people will think you've already said this, why don't you move on? Jesus said it multiple times. I believe that it needs to be said over and over and over. You know, one of the ways that propaganda affects people is that you tell a lie and it's so outrageous that people at first begin to say that couldn't be so. But if you hear it over and over and over, day after day after day, after a while you begin to believe the lie. And this is what's happened in our psychology. It's just been crammed down our throat from the times we're little kids. We've been taught these kind of things. And it has caused all kinds of problems. And so it needs to be said over and over and over. So Jesus here said you have to deny yourself and take up your cross daily. A cross is something, it's an instrument of death. It's something that you die on. In other words, you need to die to yourself. You need to die to your own self-interest. Now there is a balance here. I'm not saying that you just totally do everything to hurt yourself. You could get so far over here that you become a masochist, where you just are into hating yourself. That is not what the Bible talks about. But you need to esteem others better than yourself, and you need to die to your own self-interest when it's going to cause hurt and pain to other people. And I tell you, there's not a lot of people that will do that. And this says that you need to do it daily. In other words, this is not a one-time thing. If you heard my teaching during this series, I was talking about self-centeredness, the root of all grief, or the source of all grief. And as I talked about that, I was talking about in Romans 12, verse 2, or verse 1, where it says you have to become a living sacrifice. In other words, a living sacrifice means that it has to be done over and over and over. You don't ever just kill self to where it doesn't exist. The only way you can die to self completely is just to be dead, and you go to be with the Lord, and then I guarantee you that's the only way you can do it. But as long as we are alive and breathing in this physical body, you have to manage self. You have to die to it daily. You have to constantly be exalting God and other people over yourself. It's not a one-time thing. There may be a time that you start this process and that you blast off, but it is going to be a continual daily process of learning how to exalt other people above yourself. Let me turn over in this same gospel writer, Luke chapter 17, and show you where Jesus said all of this again. In a separate instance, this isn't the same instance, but He said in Luke chapter 17, verse 33, Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. And again, this isn't saying that you just want a death wish and you go out there and let people run over you, but it's talking about that you need to seek God and you need to seek the welfare of other people ahead of yourself. And there's just not a lot of people that are doing this. And again, I'm saying that self-esteem, the way it's promoted in our society, is incompatible with these things that Jesus said, that Paul said, and you could just go right on through the Word of God. There's just so many places that it's not all about you. And it's actually when you lose your life and you give it to God and you give it to serve other people, that's when you really benefit. You know, I wound up saying some of these things on our program yesterday, but I don't know how to say this any better than what I do. But when you go out and when you volunteer time and you help other people and you lay your life down and you do things that maybe aren't convenient for you, but you do it out of pure love and there's nothing in return. It's not like you go out and help somebody so that they can help you back, and if they don't help you back, then you're offended. I'm saying you do it with a pure motive and you just lay your life down and you bless somebody else. There is a joy and a peace and a satisfaction that comes through that you'll never know if all you do is just serve yourself and do what's good for you. Again, I wish I had better words to say that, but there are some of you watching this program right now, and I'm not saying this to try and be hard on you, but I'm just trying to enlighten you that some of you have never done anything for anybody if it was inconvenient for you, if it didn't advantage you, if you didn't have some payback coming back to you. And you have never known the joy of just doing something with a totally unselfish motivation and blessing a person when there's no way that they can bless you back. But when you do that, the Lord compensates you. The Lord gives you a joy and a satisfaction. And I guarantee you it's better than any satisfaction you're ever going to get by just promoting yourself and getting things for yourself. This is just the way that it is. And again, I don't have any better words to say it, but there are some of you that I would recommend you try it, that you need to put God and other people ahead of yourself. You know, we've got so many different ways that you can do this now. Like in Colorado Springs here, we've got some of our graduates of our Bible college that started the Springs Rescue Mission. And in the Springs Rescue Mission, it is the largest distributor of furniture in our entire city. They give out many, many times more than the government ever does. This Springs Rescue Mission, I probably wouldn't get this right if I tried to be specific, but I know it's over just a few years period of time. They have now given away nearly 2 million meals that they feed people, and they do this. They have people come down, our Bible college students and people who are alumni graduates as well as other people in the city go down there and they just offer their time to serve these people who've been living under the bridges and stuff, and they come in and eat. We've got people that have residency programs, and they've started these homes where they bring in men and women off the street and they help teach them skills that they need to be able to prosper and get back on their feet. And you just give. And you don't get anything in the natural in return, but God just blesses you back. You know, Luke 6:38, where it says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet withal, it shall be measured to you again." That's not only talking about money. We often use that to talk about how if you give, God will bless you back financially. But if you took it in its context, it's just talking about giving of any kind. Let me turn over here and read some of this context of that statement to you. This is Luke 6:38 is the verse that I just quoted. But look at the context here. Luke 6:33 says, "And if ye do good to them which do good to you, what thank have ye? For sinners also do even the same. And if ye lend to them of whom ye hope to receive, what thank have ye? For sinners also lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love ye your enemies, and do good, and lend, hoping for nothing again. And your reward shall be great, and you shall be the children of the highest, for he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. Be ye therefore merciful, for your Father also is merciful. Judge not, and you shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven." And then it says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. And so see, if you take it in its context, it's talking about just not giving natural things to people, hoping that they will return the favor. You know, if the only time you invite a person over to your house and give them a meal is so that they can return the favor, and if they don't do it, then you get upset with them, then that wasn't a pure gift in the first place. If the only time you ever go out and do anything for a person is because you know that it's going to give you leverage and they're going to feel obligated to give back, then you're missing out on this. But you can get to where you promote God and promote other people without asking for anything in return. And that's the context of all of this. And then it even talks about not giving condemnation, not giving judgment, but giving mercy instead and showing kindness to people. And then it says, give and you reap. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. I'm just telling you that there is a life that is all about blessing other people, serving other people, and not about what you can get from other people. You know, it's comparable to a vacuum cleaner. Most people live their life like a vacuum cleaner, just sucking everything towards them. I mean, they just suck the life out of people, out of every situation. It's all about them. You really ought to turn that around the other way and bless and give. And I know that there's people watching this program and thought, if I did that, well, then I'd just give out and I'd have nothing. And it's true in the natural. If there wasn't a God who said that when you give, it'll be given back unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. If God hadn't have promised that, well, then it's true that without God, if you just empty yourself out and live your life trying to bless others and serve them, well, then you would just do without while everybody else is blessed. And see, that's a humanistic, an anti-God attitude. But because there is a God who made this promise, it's actually just the opposite. That when you live your life to give, that's when God blesses you back. That's when you begin to prosper. That's when you get this satisfaction and contentment that many of you have never experienced because you've never just given out of a pure heart. But you get satisfied, plus God will repay you. You know, our own ministry, here I have given away, I don't even know, but we quit counting around 12, 15 million tapes, books, CDs, and things like this that I just give away. In the beginning of our ministry, I made it sound like I didn't even want people to give, and so I've finally got to where we encourage people to give, and then eventually there was people writing in and saying, well, we don't know what it costs. What do you want us to give? So now we say that, you know, these materials are for a donation of any amount, and we will say, here's the suggested donation. If you give this much money for this book, that's what would bless us. And so we do that. But still, 53% of all of the people who contact us ask for our books and our materials without a penny. And you know what? We send it to them. And so I'm saying this to say that I have learned to give, and I've just given. And in the natural, if you were to give away 15 million, let's just say books, that's a combination of books, CDs, DVDs, etc. But let's just say that we're talking about, if I gave away 15 million books, I think that we suggest a donation of $14 on that. Well, then that would, 15 million at $10 would be $150 million worth of materials I've given away. If you add that extra $4 to it, that'd put it up probably over, I don't know, 20 million, $150 million worth of stuff that I've given away. Did you know in the natural, most people would see that as there's no way you can prosper. And yet my ministry is a testimony that it works. That when you give, when you put other people ahead of yourself, there is a God who promised that God will give back to you. And you will actually fare better emotionally. You will fare better financially. You will fare better in every way. You know, I've got a man that's on my board of directors. He also runs our third-year business school here in the Bible College. His name is Paul Milligan. And anyway, Paul Milligan first connected with me when way back, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, when he was in the Baptist church and he heard me on radio and he received the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And then he began to start believing that God wanted him to prosper in business. And he was working for a corporation. I won't give all of the details, but basically he had a manager over him that was not a man of integrity. And Paul came up with some ideas to make the company money. And Paul told his supervisor, and instead of his supervisor passing it along, that Paul is the one that had these ideas, the supervisor turned it in as his ideas. And Paul saw this. And you know, he had a choice here. Is he going to get bitter? Is he going to try and get this guy in trouble? Is he going to try and go around him? And is he going to do these things to make sure he's promoted and he gets the recognition that he needed? He could have done that. Most people would think there's nothing wrong with that. But you know what Paul decided to do? Paul just decided that I'm going to make my boss look so good. He's going to take my ideas and we are going to prosper so much. I mean, this very first idea that he had made his company millions of dollars, and his boss got the credit, not Paul. And Paul had a choice. Was he going to get bitter? Was he going to just quit coming up with ideas? Or was he going to try and go around and discredit this guy and show him up and do all these things? He just decided, he told me that he made a decision that he was going to make his supervisor that was over him look so good that he would be the greatest employee this guy ever had. And he just kept coming up with these ideas, letting his supervisor take credit for it. And that went on for a couple of years. And eventually, you know what happened? The people that were above his supervisor, the top management people in that corporation, began to start seeing all of these awesome ideas that were making his company millions and millions of dollars. And they got to probing because they knew that that supervisor wasn't that sharp. And they traced it back to when Paul came to work there is when everything happened. And finally, the top management came to Paul and said, was this your idea? Was this your idea? And Paul said, yeah. And you know what? They said, we knew that this supervisor wasn't sharp enough to do this. We knew there had to be a reason. And they took Paul and promoted him over everybody. And Paul didn't stay there very long because he learned some things about how to serve with a servant attitude. He debased himself and humbled himself instead of promoting himself and instead of stabbing this man in the back. And now this man, Paul Milligan, has, I think it's 12 corporations, over 12,000 employees, or maybe it's 1,200. I may have got some of this wrong. But anyway, he's a multimillionaire. God's prospered him. He is blessed, 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 blessed. And you know what? The way up in the kingdom of God is down. You need to recognize that this self-serving attitude that most of us have been taught, and I think that we come to even naturally. When you're born, you just don't have this concept of other people. You know, I've had people, let me bring out another scripture here. It says in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, Jesus quoted this and said that this was the second greatest command in the Old Testament. In Leviticus 19:18, thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. And I've had people quote this before and say, this right here says that you're supposed to love yourself. You're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus, again, Matthew chapter 22, quoted this and said this was the second greatest commandment, only behind the first one of thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, from Deuteronomy chapter 6. And so people say, you've got to love yourself in order to love your neighbor as yourself. But let me take another verse and compare it with this. In John chapter 13, and in verse 34, this is Jesus speaking to his disciples the night before his crucifixion, and he says, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. Now this is something that I could probably spend a long time trying to explain this, but this New Testament commandment right here of Jesus, to love one another as God has loved us, that supersedes the Old Testament command of loving God first and then loving your neighbor as you love yourself. We now have something even greater. In the Old Testament, people couldn't be born again. And so therefore, it was quite a statement to say, love your neighbor the way you love yourself. But in the New Testament, the way that Jesus loved us is infinitely greater than loving your neighbor as you love yourself. We've even got a higher standard that has been given to us. And I've already talked about that from Philippians chapter 3 and other places. But anyway, my point in this is some people take that verse and say, see, you're supposed to love yourself, and they use it as a sense, in a sense, as saying and as promoting this self-love and this self-esteem and this self-exaltation. But now Jesus came along and said that we even have something greater. What I've been talking to you about all of last week and today about esteeming Christ better than you esteem yourself, esteeming other people better than you esteem yourself. This is greater than loving your neighbor as yourself. It's a higher standard. And in the New Testament, we've been given this new commandment that we are supposed to love others the way that Christ has loved us. And Jesus humbled himself. He actually esteemed us better than he esteemed himself. He laid his life down. He suffered shame and rejection and all of these things for us. And we are now supposed to love others that way. So that actually supersedes Leviticus 19:18 and loving your neighbor as you love yourself. I'm not saying that you should hate yourself, but I am saying that in a relative sense, compared to the way you love God and the way you love other people, you hate yourself. You prefer them above yourself. And now, it's not just loving other people the way you love yourself. We're supposed to love other people more than we love ourselves. We are supposed to lay down our life the way that Jesus did for us. And this is what I've been trying to get across. This whole teaching that I believe originated from psychology and has become so prevalent in our society today is not a scriptural truth. It goes against the scriptural truth. And I'm just telling you that, brothers and sisters, we need to renew our mind. I know that there's some of you thinking, man, this is different. I've never heard stuff like this. And you're trying to piece this together with everything you've been taught. My little 30-minute program is not going to be able to counter 40, 50, 60 years worth of the way you've been taught and brainwashed. It's going to take some effort on your part. Like Paul said that he had learned to be content. You're going to have to learn these things. You're going to have to go back and systematically undo some things that have been taught you.
Andrew's complete teaching series titled Harnessing Your Emotions is available on either CD or DVD as seen on our daily TV program. Each is available for £13. Or you can get this teaching in book form for £8.99. Go to awme.net and look under What's on TV to see the options.
Let me remind you that today is our last day to offer you this third teaching in our 4-part set as a gift. Now, we will continue to offer our book throughout the rest of this week, maybe even into next week whenever I finally finish. And we will continue to offer this DVD and CD album. But for those who cannot or would not send any money in to get these materials, we offer our teachings one at a time, free of charge. And my partners have enabled me to do that. So this teaching on self-esteem versus Christ-esteem, this is our last day to make this free offer to you. So please call or write, listen to our announcer, and respond today and receive these materials.
The third audio teaching in today's series is titled Self-esteem versus Christ-esteem. It's available for £3 when you write or call, but if you're simply unable to afford it, Andrew and his partners will send this third CD free of charge. On today's program, Andrew mentioned his booklet titled Self-Centeredness, the Source of All Grief. This product is available for £2.99 when you contact us. You can use your credit card to order resources through our website at awme.net. While you're there, you can discover more product details and download additional free resources. Or you can order through our helpline Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Our helpline number is 01922-473-300. When calling from outside the UK, you must dial your international calling code, then 44 1922 473 300. The lines are busy. Remember, you can order ministry materials 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at awme.net. To write us, use the address on your screen. We hope to hear from you today. We'd like to point out Andrew's upcoming speaking schedule. Mark your calendars to come meet Andrew at one of these events. In the month of April, he'll be in Jacksonville, Orlando, and Miami, Florida, Washington, D.C., and in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. In May, he'll be in Atlanta, Georgia, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and in Telford, England. Also in the month of May, Andrew will be ministering for the first time in several locations in India. And in July, he'll be in Colorado Springs, Colorado for the annual Summer Family Bible Conference and in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. For more details on Andrew's next meeting in your area, call our helpline or visit our website at awme.net.
When Andrew and Jamie were young, they went to a conference on biblical prosperity. They desperately wanted to get the teaching, but simply could not afford it. Andrew promised God that if he was ever in a position to make his teaching available, he would never deny it to someone for lack of funds.
And that's what motivated me really to give, is the fact that he gives this stuff away.
Our hearts are just tied with what Andrew's doing, what he's trying to accomplish.
The partnership is helping do what I can't do.
I know that I'm a part of something so big.
And my gifts can help reach the nations and the people. Whoever has ears to hear, they will hear.
Meet world changer Jim McCood. Charis Bible College graduate, class of 2004. A successful businessman, he turned his life completely over to Jesus.
Oh my gosh, there really is a God. I mean, this isn't like some story. This is like, there's really a God. When I got saved, I was saved. I just did things that I felt like God wanted me to do.
After attending Charis Bible College, Jim heard God speaking to him about using CBC's discipleship materials to reach Costa Rica. He immediately had the materials translated into Spanish using local pastors.
God said, Jim, I want you to help, he said help reach the nation, to disciple the nation of Costa Rica, and then later Latin America.
In just 3 years, Jim has established 230 discipleship groups in Costa Rica, some in homes, churches, public schools, and businesses. Are you a world changer? Charis Bible College can prepare the way. Log on to www.awmi.net for more details. Change your life. Change the world.